Building is one of many different ways you can play Minecraft, and with over 800 different blocks in the game, it can be difficult to know what blocks work well with other blocks. So in this video, what I'm going to try to do is show you how to build a simple pond, and cover the 7 main steps I took to build it. The timestamps will be in the description. My main goal is to fill this world with as many different builds as possible, so please leave a comment below if you have an idea for a build, and I might think of making this into a series. And with all that being said, let's get started. You'd think I'd be a professional YouTuber after about a year of making content. No, when I was making the outline of the pond, I actually forgot to press the record button or the flashback button in Minecraft. So I have no footage of me making the outline of the pond. I have me landscaping the outside of the pond, but I don't have me actually digging the hole. So here's me, future me, and I'm going to tell you how I build the outline of ponds. What I did was try to find the lowest point of ground in the area, since in real life when ponds form it's due to rainwater that all flows to the lowest point. This happens when the pond is naturally made. When it's man-made, it is a completely different story. So if your goal is to build a natural type pond, find the lowest point of ground and build it there. If you're looking for a man-made style pond, build it anywhere, but make sure that you build up the banks of the pond to make it look like it has been put there by somebody. And even when building a natural pond, building up the banks will help make that pond look like it fits into the space a lot better. Don't be afraid to landscape as you go and find the shape that you like for your pond. So in front of you right now is a pretty simple gradient from white to black. Why have you got this? It's because we're going to be using andesite to blackstone in this build, and I wanted to show you how pretty much a full gradient from black to white would look like. Why we're going to be using from andesite to blackstone? Pretty much because we're going to be doing a naturally build, so we're going to use natural stones like this, and then blackstone is pretty much the darkest we're going to need to go on this build. However, you can go deeper. You just can't use concrete powder in water, otherwise it's going to become concrete. I should probably tell you what all these blocks are, right? So we've got snow, we've got smooth quartz, we've got pale stripped blocks, we've got calcite, we've got diorite, we've got andesite, we've got stone, we've got cobblestone, we've got tuff, we've got pale moss, we've got deep slate, we've got blackstone, concrete, black concrete powder, and then black concrete. Okay, so I've got the full gradient here, mostly because I wanted to show you what you could use to go lighter and to go darker. So if you wanted to have like more of a very bright edged pond, you can go all the way up to snow. However, I would just recommend going like to here, depending on the build. It's like to here, you've got that bit more detail in the actual block itself, with the calcite having little kind of like grey paley textures in it, and pretty much past here you lose that detail in the actual block itself. But again, if you want to go lighter, you can. And then down here you have you pretty much past here you're going to lose all detail in the bottom of the pond anyway. But blackstone it has that blue tint to it, so it kind of suits the bottom of a pond in my opinion. However, if you wanted it to look like an abyss, you can literally use black concrete. Like this would be good if you're doing an extremely deep pond, so you can kind of make it look endless. So yeah, this is your full gradient. Again, we're going to be using it from andesite to blackstone. Finding the blocks you can use to form a gradient is the easy part. Actually using them practically is quite a lot harder. To start, find the highest point of the pond and place your lightest blocks. These are going to be the highlights of your pond. And then go to the deepest part of the pond and place the darkest blocks. Those are the low lights of the pond, or the shadowy areas. And slowly go from one to the other and place each block that is the closest in shade to that block. And once you meet in the middle, you will have your completed gradient. It doesn't matter if you have to skip a shade or two, don't worry, just trust your own eye. If one block looks like it should go there, use that one. If you're supposed to use cobblestone but pale moss works better, do that. If you want to use cobblestone but tuff works better, do that. Literally, it doesn't matter. For a little tip, what I did, since we have 3 separate layers of stones, the top layer being the lightest, which is on the outside where the water's going to be, and underneath that we'll have the first layer of water, and then under that we'd have the second layer of water. My first layer is the highlights, which is andesite stone and cobble for detail, and then the second is pale moss and tuff are in the middle, and cobble deep slate and black stone are at the very bottom Forming the lowlights. During the highlight section, what I'm going to do is put cobblestone around the edges of the water to make it look like there's been sediment that's built up around the pond over time. Again, it just adds to the storyline. You're just making a storyline when it comes to the build. That doesn't matter what build you're making. There'll be a storyline, and just try to stick to it. For a bit of detail, I added some pale logs to the middle of the pond on the flat bedded area in the middle, just to make it look like a tree or branches have fallen into the pond and then rotted over time. At the end, I do add a small tree onto the little small peninsula, adding to that storyline as well. Literally just adding storylines to your builds do improve how they look overall. And what you can do to bring your builds from this to this is literally by using slabs and stairs. They're your best friend when you're building because you could literally do anything you want with them. Well, pretty much anything you can't do with vertical slab yet. I'm still waiting, Mojang. Where's the vertical slabs? Anyway, as you can see, on the right, we are using stairs and slabs to make a slope, and on the left is the best you can get without using them. Not very good, is it? No. So, what you're going to do to start off is pretty much just place and break. I'm so sorry, but that is literally my best teaching method would be to break and place. You place, and you break. You place, and you break. You place, and you break. And you place. And then you just continue doing that pretty much the entire time. Because that is all you can do with stairs and slabs. You literally have to break and place every single thing you want. And eventually, you will get to the very top, and you realize, oh wow, I've done it. Wow. And then again, you can place more, and you can break more. Pretty simple. The only thing is, you're going to have to trust the process. Literally trust the process. Like, I don't like that, I'm going to replace it with a stair. And then I don't like that, so I'm going to replace it with that. And then I don't like that, so I'm going to replace it with that. Literally, trust the process, trust your own intuition, and eventually you will get a pretty good slope. And then when you mix that with our other step of using shading to make highlights and lowlights, you would have your highlights at the very top and your lowlights at the very bottom. So darker blocks, lighter blocks, and it will gradually form into what you want it to be. In the demo, I showed you a slope in one direction, but in a pond you're doing it from every direction. But the rules are generally the same. Place some slabs and stairs, break some blocks, and trust the process. Your goal is to form a naturally flowing slope from the very top to the very bottom. Take your time and trust yourself. Around the edges, I would recommend not to use whole blocks, especially when you're connecting it to the grass itself. Just use some slabs and stairs that go up to the grass, and again, that just makes it look like sediment from the pond has gone to the grass and been stopped by it. And next, we're talking about water flow, which talks about the sediment itself. Water flow basically occurs in millions of different ways, and if you want a full video on water flow, I am happy to do that. Just leave a comment below and I will talk about water flow in this future video. But today I'm just going to talk about how it works in a pond. So earlier I talked about how ponds form when rainwater gathers at the lowest point of ground, and that's how they form, but the water level does fluctuate, it never stays the same. Mostly that's from the sun evaporating the water in the pond, and then the rain being the main source of where the water comes from, fill it back up. You can use a waterfall for this, however that is a completely different conversation about geography that I am not going to have in this video, because I'm not including a waterfall in this pond. In this pond in particular, I am just including the rain and the sun. So I tried two different water levels, one high and one low. I settled for the lower of the two. This one just shows how high the water has gone over time, and shows that the water level can rise and fall, since we can see how far the sediment has come up over time. And also the logs in the pond make a lot more sense at this level too. A simple thing you can add to a pond is just something like this, which are pond reeds, and you can simply do them just by a bit of green stained glass and a little brown candle on top of each other, and they literally look exactly like reeds would. And then when you add them to water, it just increases the vision a little bit more. Ignore the little glare, that's just my shader pack, but other than that, they look pretty fine to me. They look like reeds would. If you variate their height, you can pretty much add as many as you want. Just add them diagonally. If you add them next to each other, they will connect, and then you'll ruin the illusion. So just leave one space between them, and then variate their pattern, You don't even have to do it this close together, you can spread them out a lot more. And to build them, it is literally just glass pane, candle, candle, candle. There we go. And you can do it at any height you want. 1, 3 if you want. You can do it even taller, but yep, that is quite literally it. There is many different blocks you can use to detail a pond. And one of the easiest and simplest ones you can get are leaves. You can put leaves in the water, and they also waterlog now, so you don't have to worry about them having air gaps in them. They have the water literally inside of the block themselves. You can add them at the bottom just to add a bit more extra detail, or one thing I usually do is use them around the edges of ponds just to add a bit more detail. So it looks like leaves have fallen into the pond and then slowly made their way to the side or the corner, and then built up over time. Another way is using drip leaves and lily pads. You can use these for parkour as well as just decor. With drip leaf you can choose the direction where it's going to form. With lily pads it is fixed to that block in the world. That block will never change direction. As well as that, with both drip leaf and lily pads, frogs are attracted to them, so they will jump onto them and kind of like interact with them. So if you wanted a pond with interaction, if you use drip leaf, they will obviously go down, but it doesn't matter which one you use, frogs will try to interact with them. And next you have small drip leaf, which you can use at the bottom of ponds, since they can go completely submerged in water, and they kind of form like an algae at the bottom of the pond. Another way you can use them is along the edges, ponds again. You can use them in tandem with leaves, where you can bulk them together and form somewhat of like sediment that's built up in the pond in kind of like a natural way, rather than with stones and gravel. You can use greenery to add like a green area of detail in more of a natural way rather than in the pond's dying way. So a little cut in here, when I was trying to find out what plants growing in a certain area due to water flow is, I learnt about tropisms. Now, I'm not going to completely talk about tropisms because it's a long process, but it's basically when plants grow in a certain area, like in a pond, because it's the space that's right for them. The right amount of sun, water, etc. All of that is part of tropisms. Just another way to detail the pond, just adding bushes everywhere. And of course you can use them in the bottom of the pond for messier details down there. Some of the last nature blocks you can use is kelp and seagrass. Obviously with seagrass you can bone meal just water and it will form a big area. But if you prefer to place it yourself, you don't have to use bone meal, you can manually place seagrass. And when you get a little seagrass, if you bone meal it, it will become a big seagrass, just in case you didn't know that. And with kelp it is the same, you can bone meal it, it will grow. And another thing, if you use shears, if I can spell shears, if you use shears on kelp, it will never grow past that stage once you use it. So if you put kelp at whatever height you want it to be, and then shear it, it will never grow past that point. And if you use the Vanilla Tweaks texture pack, you can get these little flowers on the top when they've finished growing, so you can kind of determine where the extra bit of colour goes. A way you can add light naturally is with glow lichen, and with sea pickles. With glow lichen, they are fixed to a light level of 7, I believe. And with sea pickles, depending on how many sea pickles you have, depends on the light source around. So 1 will have the lowest light level, 2 a little bit more, 3 a bit more, and then 4 is the max. Glow lichen you can use in tandem with other blocks, so like with leaves, you can place them around leaves to brighten up the leaves, as well as changing the texture of the block itself. And just other blocks like stone, dirt, you basically are changing the texture of the block with the overlay of the glow lichen. Another thing is frog spawn. However, frog spawn will eventually turn into tadpoles, so if you want frog spawn in the pond, you are going to have to regularly cull the pond of frogs and tadpoles. However, they do have a good look to them, so if you really want this texture on the pond, I would recommend not getting very attached to your frogs and tadpoles. And very last, you've obviously got coral blocks, which have their tube corals and other fan corals in relation to them. But you also have dead coral, which you can use around the edges of pond on stone to just add a bit more of like bushy, kind of like a bushy stone texture, since they all go grey when they die. But that is just another thing you can use coral blocks for. You can also use dead coral blocks themselves, so like when this one airs itself out, it will become a dead coral, and then you can use that as kind of like a sterny texture around the pond. Just another texture you can think of using in your pond. When detailing, try not to overcrowd the area. It's quite easy to do, but don't be afraid to break what you've already placed and try again. To detail the pond, what I did was place reeds and small drip leaf around the edges and mix in some lily pads. And a little further down, I placed some sea pickles to add light to the middle area. And lastly, mix in some seagrass and kelp at the deepest point. Now, do that all over the pond, but don't be scared to leave some areas with little detail. That just helps the more detailed areas stand out. And at the very end, I placed some glow lichen around the edges, just on that exposed stone area for some more light. Now, if you do want to add frog spawn, you can. It's quite good for a photo, but I forgot to mention in the detailing section that you cannot manually place them in survival mode. What you can do is just breed 2 frogs together and eventually they will place it in the pond for you. You just can't determine where it's actually going to be placed. And that is everything. You have completely built your pond. But that's not the end. I'll show you how I detail the area around a natural build to fit it in better with its surroundings. First, I added a small tree. If you'd like a full video on how trees are built in Minecraft, leave a comment and I would love to let you know, since they are very complicated to understand and build. Next, I added this bench, which I was inspired by a wheelchair accessible bench I saw online. I'll add a photo on the screen now so you can see what it looked like. And overall, I just love the way the bench looks. And very last, I did cop out a bit on the landscaping. I just randomly placed tall grass around the perimeter, and on the inside I placed bushes, flowers and leaf litter under the tree, and anything else I could find. I did add a little area of rose bushes around the back of the pond, and to add some ambience, I placed some firefly bushes and some spore blossoms. If you want to make the firefly bushes produce fireflies all the time, place them underneath the block where the bush is actually on, and since it's in complete darkness, it will continuously produce fireflies for you. And that is everything. I'm going to leave you with a little montage of the build. If you'd like to see more videos like this, or you want me to focus on one type of build or area of building, let me know in the comments. I'd love to turn this into a series and have your input on what I put here in the world. If you like the video, drop a like and subscribe. It really helps push my videos out. And I really hope you enjoy this little montage, and I'm going to say goodbye. Goodbye!